Welcome back. In 2020, one of my real-life chess friends, Hohlistix, or maybe Hohlistix Batman is how you'd pronounce it, not quite sure, he played one of the strongest Grandmasters of all time, Hikaru Nakamura. This was an online charity match where Nakamura was playing 77 players simultaneously. Now, Hohlistix was extremely excited about the game, as I would be, and he went and told all of his friends, his family, and even his work colleagues. So everybody was watching the live stream to see how he'd get on. And Nakamura's got his attention split between 77 games, so there is a chance that the computing power is a little bit diluted, and Hohlistix actually stands a chance. So we'll see how he got on. Nakamura plays d4. Hohlistix has prepared for this with knight f6, but he misclicks and plays f6 instead. Ooh, so this is probably the worst move he could have possibly played, but he's done it now and it's locked in, there's no going back. On the plus side, all of his friends, family and work colleagues are very impressed with his sheer audacity against the Super Grandmaster. Speaking of whom, he immediately plays e4. And you can see this moment on the live stream video that I'll link in the description below at 9 minutes 21, but blink and you'll miss it. It's very fast. Now, a good move from Hohlistix here would be e6, so he doesn't play that, he plays g6 instead. And now Nakamura senses blood, and he goes for an immediate kingside attack with h4. Hohlistix plays e6, better late than never, and Nakamura continues with h5. And here, Hohlistix starts to get better. He plays the best move as recommended by the engine, and Nakamura keeps pushing. And Hohlistix, I guess he's warmed up now because, again, he plays the best move as recommended by the engine. But Nakamura goes for the check here on h5 with the queen. So what does Hohlistix do? Well, he again plays an excellent move. He goes for king to e7. So everybody watching is thinking, what's he going to do? Is he going to be able to hold out here, or is he just going to blunder again immediately? Nakamura pushes e4 and Hohlistix blunders immediately with f5. And now, in this position, there is a crushing move that Nakamura can play. So I'm going to give you 10 seconds on the countdown clock to figure out what Nakamura's next move is. Let's go. Okay, so the time's up. If you thought that the move was bishop captures on g5, then congratulations, this is the best move and absolutely crushes Hohlistix. But it's not actually the move that Nakamura played. We'll go through both lines and see how it works out. So if check like this, we have captures, queen captures the bishop, skewering the king. The king can't come to any of these squares because the queen will just get taken for nothing. He has to protect it. But Nakamura is not going to go for that. He's going to go for g7. The queen will come out to protect. The rook is lost, now pinning the king. The queen will block. The rook will come in. And now the knight will come out, offering the exchange of queens, which he will accept, but not on this square. He'll accept on this square instead. So after captures, the knight is under attack now, so it will need to come out. But now we've got check, and after the king moves, picking up the bishop instead. So absolutely crushing. But luckily for Hohlistix, he didn't spot this. He spotted something, Nakamura spotted something slightly less crushing instead, which was queen captures bishop. So if you guessed that move, also well done. It was the move that Nakamura played. So we have the knight captures, and now the bishop captures the pawn, again skewering the queen. The king moves out of the way, the queen is captured, the king captures the bishop, and now the knight's hanging, so captures with the rook. So what could Hohlistix have played instead of this horrific f5 blunder that led to all the captures? Well, he could have just retreated his bishop to g7, which would have defended everything. But he didn't do that, he pushed the pawn. So after all the captures, the game continues with knight to c6, trying to develop his remaining pieces, knight to f3, and knight to b4 from Hohlistix. He's hoping that the Super Grandmaster is not going to spot this fork and just let him take the rook. but the Super Grandmaster spots it and defends with knight to a3. And we continue with a6 and then c3, chasing away the knight, which goes to d5. We now have castles, queenside, b6, making space for the bishop on b7, and now knight to g5, thinking I'm just going to fork this guy here and pick up his rook. But Hohlistix says, well, I'm just as good at spotting forks as you are, and he gets out of it by moving his king to e7, so good job, well played. We have bishop to e2 and bishop to g7, as we said was the plan, and now the rooks double up along the h-file, looking very mean. But Hohlistix doesn't mind. He goes for the attack on the bishop here, and he says, what are you going to do? I'm attacking your bishop. But Nakamura doesn't care about that. He just captures the pawn with check, so Hohlistix has to deal with this first. He captures, and we have captures again with check, and the king retreats to e8. Now he's got to be a bit careful here, because if the rook comes to the back rank, he's just going to pick up the other rook and just be completely winning even more than he is already. But Nakamura likes his bishop, so he goes to f3 with it instead, because it was still under attack. Hohlistix goes for the exchange, and Nakamura captures with the pawn. And now Hohlistix avoids this skewer by moving his rook out of the way. We continue with knight to c4, and now Hohlistix plays knight to d3, checking the Super Grandmaster. So yeah, something to be proud of. Good job. We have king to d2, attacking the knight, and Hohlistix says, well, I can attack your knight as well. So both knights under attack, and Nakamura just captures. Hohlistix captures, gets a second check in, so good stuff, but the king just captures straight away. Now we have rook to b2, attacking this undefended pawn, but Nakamura just pushes it to b4, and now it's defended. Hohlistix can push pawns too, so he pushes to c6. You might want to watch out for this, though. This pawn is kind of pinned here. Nakamura just keeps pushing his king forward. Hohlistix goes for another check, and so 3 checks, so good stuff. Hat trick, in fact. He captures the pawn with the king, and Hohlistix decides to get rid of his rook. So now, current state of play is that Nakamura has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pawns and a knight against Hohlistix 4 pawns. So, yeah. I would just like to point out here that all of Hohlistix's moves since the terrible blunder on f5 on move 7, and some of the moves before that, have all been excellent, good moves. It's just the opening blunders were so bad, it's given Nakamura just a massive head start, and it's just a question of how long Hohlistix can hold out against him. So we'll keep going and find out. We continue with Hohlistix's 30th move, king to f7, but the knight checks, so he attacks the knight, and the knight captures the pawn on e6. We have king to h5, and really this is the only inaccuracy that he's played this whole time since move 7. So I'm proud of our boy. It appears, though, that his plan needs work. It's an inaccuracy because it would have been better to maybe stay in front of the white pawns, but I think Hohlistix is going for the plan of moving down here, coming across, capturing the pawns, coming up to here, and then bringing this pawn across to queen. So ambitious, I'll give him that, but he's not got much else that he can do. So Nakamura continues with the knight moving to c5. We have king to h4 following the plan, and of course Nakamura now pushes this pawn, which is passed, and there's no way to stop it, but continue with the plan. Don't worry about it. King to h3, e7, king to g2, and now Nakamura, of course, promotes to a queen. We have king to f1, so he's abandoned that plan now. He's just going to hide in a hole, and hopefully the storm will pass. Maybe he can get some more moves in. The pawn is pushed to f4, and Hohlistix says, well, I've got a pawn I can push too, and he pushes a5. But of course it's immediately captured, and now this is a passed pawn that is going to queen, and there's no stopping it. So Hohlistix starts hoovering up as many pawns as he can, but we have a6, so as we said, unstoppable. King to f3, a7, king captures another pawn, so good job, but queens on a8. And Hohlistix retreats now. He goes for g3. There's not much he can do. We have queen to e3 with check. It's looking very grim. King to h2. queen to g5, locking in the king against the side of the board here. And one last desperate move for Hohlistix, pushing his pawn to f4. And of course, checkmate on the h-file. Just crushed. So he made it to move 44. So everybody was very proud of him against the Super Grandmaster. He got absolutely crushed, but other than his misclick at the start, he only made 2 bad moves the whole game. Those were the second move and the f5 move that allowed Nakamura to go a piece up. The rest were all excellent moves and one inaccuracy near the end when he should have stayed in front of the white pawns. All in all, he made his friends, family, and even his work colleagues very proud, taking Nakamura to 44 moves, even though his game barely registered more than a split second on the live stream. Well, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you again next time.